All right, well, the last thing I want to talk about is doctors and money. I have lots of physicians as clients, as you and I have discussed many times, and maybe some physicians will see this randomly somewhere. It's been my experience in 33 years of doing what I do that many physicians struggle with their finances. And I think part of the reason, at least in my opinion, is the delayed gratification. You guys go to school for 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it is. You're in your early 30s by the time you really have any meaningful income. You've suffered, you've watched your friends buy this, that, or the other, get a house, a car, or whatever. And by the time you hit the streets with a little cash in your pocket, not you in particular, because I do know you're not this way, but a lot of physicians get lost in that consumerism for a few years, and then I find it takes them another 7 or 8 years to uncover from what they did the first 3 or 4 years. In addition to that, I've noticed that physicians are a target. And we're talking about doctors, but the reality is this could apply to any profession where it's a high-income profession but takes a while to get there and that kind of thing. But in this example, physicians are often the target of great ideas. Doc, how's a trucking company sound to you? Or, if I'm into this frozen meat company, and I use those two examples because I've heard them both.
Right.
So can you talk about what you've seen not only in physicians that you're obviously friends with, but also why you didn't go that route?
Yes, and as you know, my sister does exactly what you do, and she's been a wealth manager for about the same period of time. And so I get the bad stories from her.
Yeah.
And I am aghast at some theoretically very successful doctors who, at their end of their career, barely have any money in the bank and are wondering, they want to make a sudden move to suddenly increase their finances after, again, when they're basically heading into retirement.
Right.
And that's just an impossible task. So one of the things that was an advantage to me is that I had to rely on myself to get through college and medical school. I had no outside help from parents, etc. And so I had to rely on loans, scholarship, working, that sort of thing. And when you have that kind of mentality that no one's going to give you anything, so you need to put money away, so you don't ever get caught short. And I did get caught short in medical school one time when one of my loans was delayed. I completely ran out of money. I had no money to even buy groceries, and I had to get a short-term loan from the front office at the medical school. And that's a frightening feeling that has never gone away.
Yeah.
To not have anyone to turn to and to have no money in a situation where you're waiting for a loan that's being delayed by the school. But anyway, so in talking to my sister and just doing a lot of reading, I've come to find out that doctors are bad with finances and money, and they're also terrible pilots.
Yeah, though that's been proven. Both of those things have been proven, sadly, a few times.
And the question is why? And one you already addressed, and that is this tremendous delay of gratification. And not only are you starting to make money when you finally graduate, but then you have years of loan repayment for a lot of us. And so it really does take probably into your late 30s before you get behind the 8 ball. But when the income starts rolling in and the credit that you can obtain is when people start buying or leasing cars that are way beyond their means, or homes that are way bigger than they either need or can afford. And it does present a problem.
I want to put a pin in that, because I think there's also this feeling as a physician who is so, let's face it, they're accomplished people. Lots of schooling, obviously intelligent people in many ways, or they wouldn't get through the chemistry and the things that you have to get through. I also feel like there's this, I have to drive a nice car. I have to live I'm a doctor. I have to live like a doctor lives, or at least like I think a doctor lives. You and I have discussed The Millionaire Next Door. I've said it on this podcast 1,000 times. I think they get caught up in this persona that they want to push forward, well, I'm a doctor and I need to drive a $100,000 car. No, you don't. You absolutely do not.
Yeah, I don't. I've always tried to fly under the radar, and when I'm not at work, I like to be Ivan. Ivan, the guy who runs, who plays guitar, who works on cars. That's who I am when I'm not at the office. I'm not the guy who hangs his stethoscope on the rearview mirror and goes to Publix in scrubs.
Yeah.
And drives a Range Rover. It's a perfectly nice car, but
Right.
I like my Ford Explorers just as nice, I think. And yeah, I am a car guy, but I tend to buy cars that are older and are actually appreciating rather than depreciating.
Right.
But getting back to an earlier issue about that, it's not just about delayed gratification. I asked several people who are not doctors but are pilots, why is it that doctors keep killing themselves in airplanes and that sort of thing, or making bad business decisions? And what happens is, you're right, people who go into medicine are very bright, and they're very good at that one particular thing, which is the practice of medicine. But then they extrapolate their knowledge to feel that because they're bright, that they can manage finances, they can buy and sell, they can be day traders, they can fly in bad weather because they're smart enough to outmaneuver the weather or whatever it is.
Right.
And calamity happens.
Yeah.
And you have to know your limitations in knowledge and circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do extrapolate, and they do think, well, I got straight A's in chemistry at wherever. Clearly, I can manage my own money. And I would never think, well, I can practice medicine because I'm a good financial advisor. That would never even cross my mind, right?
Yeah.
So I do think, and I also think they're egged on. I think there's this, when somebody realizes you're a physician, first thing in their head is, for a lot of people, unfortunately, is, well, I can probably get this man or this woman to invest in something because, I believe they have a lot of money, and I believe they'd be a good target, I guess, for lack of a better word.
I would say doctors are gullible in that respect.
Yeah.
And somebody gets their trust and promises them a 15 to 20% return on some investment. And doctors plunk down their money left and right without thinking about it, studying it, talking to others, getting a second opinion, as you would often do with a complicated medical situation. And I have been presented with opportunities where somebody promises some large return, and I actually tend to shirk away from those things, particularly if I have no way to check it. And if somebody says, this is a good opportunity where you can outperform the market by 2 or 3 points, I'm interested, but I will research it. Now, with the internet, you can read a lot, and again, I can bounce ideas off my sister, off of you, obviously, and but I don't ever pretend to be managing my own finances by myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't, again, this is not unique to doctors, but it is a group that seems to fall prey to this situation quite a bit. And I think if more physicians got better education, it's like anything. It's true of our high school kids or our middle school kids, getting an education on finances and what to look for and what not to look for, what's realistic, what's not realistic, how to balance a checkbook. No, you shouldn't borrow $400,000 to get an English degree. Some of these things, I think, need to be taught at lower levels, and certainly medical school is at a lower level, but at some point that needs to be made clear as well.
I think you're right. I think there's so much in medical school that you have to learn anyway, but there should be a little bit about how to manage a business, how to manage finances, that sort of thing, because a lot of doctors do get into this.
Because you run your own business too. I mean, you're not, and that's somewhat unique to you. You're an entrepreneur as well, which is, I can tell you, is fairly rare. A person like yourself who not only is a talented physician, but is a talented entrepreneur. So you're a little bit of a unicorn in that regard, but that doesn't mean other physicians can't learn part of the story.
Well, it's like any disease process that I'm not familiar with, or a drug I've never heard of. It's easy enough to research it. If what I research doesn't make sense or I have questions, I'll call a colleague who's an expert in that field. And and I'll keep reading and researching until I become knowledgeable of that particular thing. In running a business, I started with a blank piece of paper and I wrote down the issues and how to solve them. And I would perhaps talk to a friend who would be an attorney or a banker, and just with other people's help, make the right decisions. Perhaps read a book about how to start a business practice, that sort of thing.
And there's plenty of them out there for sure.
Yeah. But some people will make decisions without really putting a lot of thought into it. And that can often backfire.
And that's often the reason for that is like anybody else, it's looking for a shortcut. Mm-hmm. People do not like to get rich slowly. They want the quick fix. And that's back to your story about the physician who has a 30-year career and then they wake up at 58 or 62 and go, well, I've got a lot of ground to make up. I better just double down on black here or red.
Right.
And then things get worse typically.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
well, that's insightful. So I've got 3 takeaways from the 3 different topics, which were, from the first one is get off your butt and do some exercise.
Absolutely.
Especially as you age. The second one is get your COVID vaccine as soon as you get the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And the third one is whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, or a plumber, doesn't matter. Educate yourself on any investment decisions, especially the ones that sound too good to be true, because they 99% of the time are too good to be true.